Hello, you lovely lot, and welcome back to Reese Rambles, episode number 69. Nice. And that's all I'll say on the matter, because we don't want to be immature about this, do we? We're a mature bunch around here with our old PCs and whatnot. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice that there's an ever so slight change of scenery going on as well. In fact, this is very reminiscent of my old filming setup when I used to film stuff at home with just the camera in front of me. And it's quite nostalgic for me. I'm quite enjoying it so far, but we'll see how I get on with it. I'm sat in the corner with the desk PC behind me, which of course has featured on the channel a few times. That lovely Time desk PC. I ran Doom on a piece of office furniture, I think was the title of the video. And I've actually been using it for its intended purpose. So at the minute, I'm running Windows Millennium Edition. Why am I running Windows Millennium Edition on this thing, I hear you ask? Because I mentioned in that first video that I wanted to put ME on it, and it upset quite a few people. And people were like, "You're an idiot. Why would you want a Millennium Edition? It's rubbish." And there's nothing I enjoy more than annoying those kind of people. So that's what I'm running at a minute. Of course, it's got that compact flash card adapter in it, and I have a few different cards with different OSs on, and I just kind of switch between them. But actually, ME was the one that I've been playing with the most, and it's the one that's kind of the best setup with all of the drivers and WinImage and stuff like that. Because I wanted to use it for its actual intended purpose as a bridge PC to actually transfer files from the modern stuff to the old stuff. So I've got something on the desk here that I've been working on at the moment, and I wanted to try and flash the BIOS, which I needed a floppy disk for. And thankfully, some very kind person updated or uploaded the very latest BIOS update available for this machine to archive.org, and I stuck it on a USB stick on my little MacBook Air here, and then shoved it in the desk PC, wrote a floppy. All works great. And of course, I've got that DVD CD burner in there as well, in case I need to write any of those. Not written any CDs or DVDs on it yet, but one day I will. But anyway, that's all just waffling. I think what we need to do is get into the news stories for this week. And in particular, there's one where there's been quite a lot of activity, I think it's fair to say. Something I've been following for the past few weeks. You also notice that I'm kind of swiveling on my chair here because I actually stole some spare chairs from the office. So I have a proper office chair once more. But yeah, anyway, back to that story. Of course, I've been reporting on this for a few weeks. This is the DE10 clone, which is being made by Taki Udon. The DE10, of course, being the board at the heart of the MiSTer FPGA project. And I've explained what MiSTer is every single week. So yeah, if this is your first time here and you need that explanation again, I would go back to one of the episodes where I first reported on that, because I'm just wasting everyone's time by going over it over and over again. But anyway, let's see what's been happening with this project in the past week, because I've also had my own little 15 minutes of fame off the back of this as well, and not in a good way. I've said some controversial things, but yeah, we'll look at that in a second. So yeah, in the previous update, obviously he had tweeted that the D10 clone board had passed the final QA, the final sort of quality control step, and was now going into production. Turns out there's actually a minor issue, and there is going to have to be another very minor revision just to do with the video output. But that's all well underway and in hand. And yes, obviously there's been an update on the Switch OLED stuff project, which he's also involved with. And there has been a render of the console that he's also working on. So, of course, he's managed to source those FPGA chips, that Cyclone 5 chip, has built these D10 clones, but that's not the be-all and end-all. That's not kind of the end goal of the project. The project is to offer lots of different MiSTer-compatible boards and things. And one of them is a console, and he's actually posted a render of this showing the power connector, the USB sockets, HDMI, VGA, audio. It's got Toslink, so it's got the optical audio output on it, and it has an Ethernet port, which is really cool. Very similar to the MiSTer multi-system, which I personally use for my MiSTer needs. And yeah, had to move some video ports from the back to limit the overall thickness. I'll probably end up in a side panel if they aren't completely removed. That will be your kind of analog outputs, like the obviously composite video, RGB, that kind of stuff. So it'll be like a modular type thing, I guess, similar to the Mars project, which we looked at a couple of weeks ago. So that's looking cool. And that's not really been the main focus of the stuff that I've been looking at. It's got so many projects and stuff on the go, hasn't it? And this is where the controversy came about. So this was 3 days ago, and a lot's happened in the past 3 days regarding this. He posted a picture of the box asking for feedback on the design for the box for this thing. Now, the name hadn't actually been previously announced for this project, and the box says Mr. Pi on it. The logo's kind of blurred out, so obviously it's not quite ready to reveal that to the world yet, which is absolutely fair enough, but it says Mr. Pi Retro Gaming FPGA board. And this caused quite a stir, I think it's fair to say. And this is how my name ended up on TimeExtension.com, which is obviously the big retro gaming news site. And this story has been updated since it was first posted, but essentially the headline now is Backlash Against $99 MiSTer FPGA Clone's Name Results in Creator Offering Alternatives. And if we scroll down here, we've got a reply from Todd Gill, our good friend of the channel, of course, known for Retro Frog, and he's basically replied to this initial post saying, why in the world have the word Pi in its name? Which, to be fair, this has nothing to do with the Raspberry Pi. It was very weird that you would call it the Mr. Pi. And Taki's just responded with quite has responded with, "Sir, this is a Wendy's," which is just a kind of a non-response, and actually got into a bit of a back and forth with Todd, which was it was friendly, but obviously he was like trying to work out what the thinking was with the name and whether it was a serious proposal and stuff. And if we scroll down a little bit further in this story, this is where my name comes up. It says, however, he's far from being alone when it comes to resistance to the new name. He has to be trolling, says Control-Alt-Reese. It would be insane to come this far just to end up making it look like yet another dodgy Raspberry Pi clone. Now, of course, people know what this thing is. People are following this project. They're not going to think that it's a dodgy Raspberry Pi clone. I mean, this was an exchange between me and Todd. I know Todd. He's been a supporter of my channel for a very long time. Chatted to him before, and this wasn't supposed to be some kind of big, grand public statement on this thing. But I do stand by it. I do think Mr. Pi is a pretty terrible name for a new MiSTer-related FPGA thing, because it has nothing to do with the Raspberry Pi. All right, those of us who are in this world and know about this stuff, we know what it is. But if if you're playing your games emulated on a Raspberry Pi and someone comes along and says, "Oh no, you should be using the MiSTer instead, it's much better," and then you kind of go shopping around for options, you'll see that listed on a website and you'll go, well, that's just another Raspberry Pi based thing, and you won't look at it. And I think that's doing a massive disservice to all of the great work that Taki has put into this project. Just my 2 cents, really. Of course, it's free to call it whatever it wants, and I'm sure it'll be successful no matter what he calls it. And the reason I said he has to be trolling is I wasn't, being flippant or taking the mickey or anything. I thought the logo was blurred out, so perhaps it's just a way of kind of centering the name. But it turns out that actually it wasn't. That was the name that he was going to go with. And because of all of the feedback that he's had off the back of this, he has actually put a poll up on Twitter now, saying that basically the name can be changed. Here are the alternatives that you can choose from. If you don't change the name, it will, it will just be out as planned. But if we do have to change it, then that will result in a month delay. And there have been votes on this, and the winning option, which to be fair is the one that I also picked, was the Retro FPGA. So yeah, I think that's a much better name than Mr. Pi. Someone suggested Mr. Udon, which I thought was a really cool name, and there have been some other kind of noodle-related suggestions that were quite cool. But yeah, lots of stuff going on, and more memory modules and bundles and things announced. And then dropped, obviously we've got the new packaging design here, which is looking quite nice, I think it's fair to say. Like the old black and white theme, I think it's looking very classy, so that's very cool to see. And then dropped another bomb, which was literally 2 hours ago as I sit here recording this. So this will be yesterday. It's Friday today, the 14th. I just got out of a meeting with the team. Unfortunately, we have to change the prices on the $99 board and the $115 kit. These will both now be cheaper. So yeah, the headline kind of news about this thing all along is that it's less than half the price of the original DE10 Nano board. And now he's gone ahead and said, no, actually, we're going to do it even cheaper, which is absolutely incredible. So, yeah, my hat is off to Taki Udon. The first batch is going to be a batch of 2,000, which should be out in about a month's time, I think, towards the end of July, has been announced. And I also saw a reply, I don't have it up here, but I did see a reply to a query saying that the next batch will be a month after that. So actually, availability of these is going to be really good. And as I've mentioned before, I think I am looking to get my hands on one to put into my arcade machine, because I think that deserves a proper MiSTer setup in it. So loads of cool stuff going on with Taki Udon's retro FPGA project, as it's now called. Good to see that the name was changed. And I didn't mean to make a big public statement about it. I was just replying to my friend Todd, but I do stand by it, and it's great to see that it's been changed, because I think it's really going to help the project to succeed, which is what I want to see. So some more exciting stuff going on in the world of FPGA-based retro gaming. And, it would be remiss of me not to report on these in the name of completeness. And also they're projects that I'm very much personally excited about, because it's all stuff that I've covered on my channels before. So if you'll indulge me, the first thing that I want to talk about is the MiSTer multi-system, which I mentioned a few minutes ago. That, of course, is the MiSTer system that I personally use. And I'm probably sounding like I'm sponsored by these people, but I'm not. I did a video on it. I paid full price for mine. I was just happened to get in there really early. But yeah, big fan of their work. And the reason for that, which I've kind of always been very clear about, is that I didn't want to commit. I was disorganized. I had analysis paralysis, as they call it. Of course, the proper MiSTer system, I say the proper MiSTer system, obviously there are so many different options out there now, but basically the traditional MiSTer stack consists of that DE10 nano board, which I mentioned a moment ago, which Taki Udon has done that clone of. And it consists of that with various different modules that you plug into it. So you've got memory modules, you've got video modules, audio modules, loads and loads of different stuff. Snack, which is a controller interface to use your original controllers, all created by the community, mostly open source, and some incredibly talented people just kind of working on this thing to try and improve it. And the thing is, I couldn't commit. I couldn't decide how I wanted mine to be configured, because every decision that you make comes with various trade-offs and stuff like that. So I was very pleased when this was announced, because HEBA have a really long history of developing gaming-related stuff, and they really do know their stuff. And that's why I bought it. And it has proven to be a little bit contentious, maybe, in the world of MiSTer, because, I mean, there are a lot of people in the world of MiSTer that like arguing amongst themselves, and that is true of any community. So, not specifically a MiSTer thing, but one thing that kind of keeps coming up and keeps rearing its ugly head is the decisions that they made around the RAM. So this has a RAM module which can snap out, and it's based on the version 2.5 of the MiSTer RAM, which was the standard at the time that this thing was first designed. I should add that this is open source now, and it has been for quite a while, so you can buy them from a few different places. You can get the the PCB files and stuff, and you can tweak it slightly if you want to change it, or you can send the Gerbers or the Gerbers or the Gerbils or whatever they're called off to your favourite PCB fabrication service. No, this isn't a setup for a sponsor spot, still unsponsored, but yeah, you can send those files off, and you can actually get one made yourself, or there's a few different places selling them now, which is really cool. But that's by the by, that's just a tangent. But yeah, because they used one, you've also got two sets of GPIO on the DE10 board, and they used one side for the RAM, of course, because most of the cores require some kind of RAM module on that side, and they used the other side for analog video output, SCART, SNAC for those original controllers. Bits and pieces like that, which means that you're limited to the one RAM module. And there have been a few scares, I guess, a bit of FUD, a bit of fear, uncertainty and doubt, a bit of scaremongering over the years to do with the RAM configuration that they've chosen. The first one being that when the Saturn core and the PlayStation core were first under development for this thing, that you couldn't use the second RAM module, and it didn't actually work. And then it turned out that as things were better optimized and were developed further, ceased to be an issue. You actually only just need the one standard RAM module. True of some of the arcade cores as well. I think there are one or two that add some extra functionality if you have the second RAM, but not really anything that you would really notice unless you were sort of really kind of deep in the weeds with this thing. So there's that. And that all kind of blew over, and people actually realised that it wasn't such a big issue after all. But the latest one that people have been getting up in arms about on the official Discord and stuff is to do with the actual version of the RAM. So, of course, it was v2.5 when this was designed. Version 3 has since been released, and the difference is the length of the traces on the PCB. So, yeah, a couple of millimeters shorter, and that makes all the difference. I mean, that is how far people are pushing this hardware right now with the timings and things, that, you know, a few millimeters difference in the length of some PCB traces is the difference between something working perfectly and something being slightly glitchy. And again, people have been complaining and saying, oh, you know, I'm going to have to change the RAM module. Someone did actually come out with a redesigned version 3 RAM module for this if you want to upgrade it yourself. I'll probably wait for the Taki Udon one because he's announced that that's going to be $15, so that suits me just fine. But actually, it turns out that it's, again, not proven to be a problem. So this has come from, and I'm just alt-tabbing sneakily here to look up the guy's name, Sega Davodnenko, who was the Ukrainian developer of the Sega Saturn core for the MiSTer. And this actually came in the form of an issue on the official GitHub. So someone reported this as an issue, specifically to do with Street Fighter 03. So the way that this issue kind of manifests itself is that there are some games like Sega Rally and a couple of other games on the Saturn where the music will be slightly glitchy or sound effects will be slightly glitchy, or even in some rare occasions, some rare cases, the game will freeze up and the screen will go black. And this has been a bit of an ongoing thing with people with the version 2.5 RAM. And this has been repeated, and someone said at the end of the game's introduction, the sound disappears, and when we choose character in arcade mode, in the second fight, the game becomes slow and has no sound. And there's a bit of a back and forth. You know, the developer, Sergey, has asked what version of the RAM are you using, and sent some pictures, and of course it's the 2.5. And then just right at the end of this thread, just completely nonchalantly, he's like, oh, okay, try this build. And has linked to a downloadable version of the Saturn core, and has a reply saying, now it's perfect, thank you very much. I'm going to test this version and test the others that went okay for me. And based on the feedback that I've seen, this little thing here, and that there's been no big fanfare, no big announcement to do with this, I've seen quite a few people testing this with games that were previously problematic, and it solved all of the problems with that RAM module. So actually, yet again, it turns out that the design was fine all along, and it was just the core that needed tweaking and improving, which is absolutely fantastic news. This isn't some kind of "I told you so" or anything like that. But yeah, again, it's just proven that you know, the developers, you know, some of the smartest people kind of working in the kind of retro gaming sphere at the moment have got it working. So that is really, really cool to see. I haven't tested this myself. I was kind of thinking about maybe doing a video on this and just comparing the two, but I've got so much other stuff going on. So I wanted to put that information out there. If you have a MiSTer multi-system, or if you have the v2.5 RAM in a traditional MiSTer stack or one of those other kind of mini ITX setups, or you know, one of the various options, you can download this core and give it a try for yourself. And of course, this will be officially released and be made part of the official updater if all of that testing goes well. I don't think it's quite available through the official MiSTer update channels just yet. But yeah, that's that problem solved. So really cool, and it's quite a big thing for all the people who've been playing with the Sega Saturn core, myself included. I just haven't had time to personally test this week. So that is hot off the press as well. And the other thing that I just wanted to briefly touch on that has come about in relation to FPGA stuff and personal projects and stuff that I've been kind of played with in the past. The FPGBC, that FPGA-based Game Boy that I keep shouting about, someone sent me a link, somebody on my Discord server. Who was that? It was Kirbyco, long-term supporter of the channel, and he's made me aware that there are now different motherboard color options available, and these look really, really cool. So, you know, we've got yellow PCB, we've got a purple PCB, we've got a blue PCB, we've got, I think, we've got green, of course, but the one that I think is my favorite is the pink version. I mean, how cool is that? Yeah, it's like a Barbie pink. That in a clear shell is going to look really cool, isn't it? So for what these kits cost, I don't know, maybe I'll end up building another one. Maybe I'll build one for the wife. That's a good excuse to buy another one, isn't it? But yeah, not quite available on on Retro Game Repair Shop where I bought mine just yet, but hopefully they will be becoming available soon. But yeah, just a cool project. And there has been a firmware update for FPGBC this week as well. So if you're a fellow owner of one of those, you might want to update that. They've added some extra color palettes and optimized some stuff and fixed some specific issues with a few specific games, and the tilt sensor calibration with games that have the built-in tilt sensor. So as usual, I will link to all of that stuff down in the usual places. But yeah, that's that. So it's been a while since I've talked about PC games and kind of modern stuff with a bit of a retro tilt to it, or a bit of a retro connection to it on this channel. What was the last game I was excited about? I think it was probably the Dark Forces reboot or remaster, wasn't it, by Night Dive. But there's been, this week we have had the Summer Game Fest 2024, and we have had the Xbox Games Showcase as a part of that. Of course, those games aren't all exclusive to Xbox. They'll also be coming out on the PC. I don't have a modern Xbox, so yeah, you know. Yeah, I just wanted to go through some of these as well and just make people aware of them, because there's some really cool looking stuff here and some stuff that I'm definitely going to be picking up. So without further ado, let's dive into this. And the first one that I wanted to talk about was Perfect Dark. And this was actually announced. Was this announced way back in 2020? I think there was like a very short kind of a teaser trailer type thing. And of course, this is the reboot, and it's not a remaster; it's a complete new game. This is a reboot of Rare's classic shooter on the N64, one of the best games on the N64. Of course, also known for GoldenEye, so they very much knew what they were doing. And of course, there was Perfect Dark Zero on the Xbox 360 as well, which I was a massive fan of back in the day. Such a great game. And we've finally got some actual gameplay footage of this, and this is looking absolutely fantastic. I mean, this reminds me of, you know, the modern Deus Ex games or Cyberpunk or something like that. Obviously, you play as Joanna Dark, who is a spy, British spy, as you do. And it's got creeping around, it's got stealth, it's got hacking, it's got all this cool stuff, all these cool gadgets, and of course you've got your good old-fashioned kind of gunplay and fighting stuff in there as well. So a really good mix of stuff. I've been looking forward to a new Deus Ex game for the longest time, because I loved what was it, Mankind Divided and Human Revolution, which were the two new ones that they did in the past few years. I think they did some DLCs and missions and stuff for those as well. It's been too long. It's been far too long. I want another game like that. And of course, that studio was very sadly shut down, even though they did have a new game in development. But yeah, we've got Perfect Dark at least. So this is looking really cool. I don't think they've announced a release date for this yet, but I just thought the trailer was looking really good. So if we go back to the story on Polygon this time, and of course, again, this will all be linked as always. It says, Joanna Dark's back. Microsoft revealed a long look at its ambitious, long-in-development reboot of the Perfect Dark franchise on Sunday at the Xbox Games Showcase, revealing the first gameplay from Secret Agent Joanna Dark's all-new adventure. And it says, the new Perfect Dark will focus on a near-future war over advanced tech that threatens the lives of millions, said Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty. Stop giggling in the back. As Dark, players will need to use stealth, parkour, high-tech gadgetry, and good old-fashioned firearms to fend off global disaster. Perfect Dark will feature elements of first-person shooters, immersive sims, and stealth action, according to a post on Microsoft's Xbox Wire. So yeah, that is looking really cool. I think that's might even end up being a day one purchase for me when that does eventually release. But like I say, I don't think there's any news on I don't think there's any news on an actual release date yet. But yeah, initially revealed in 2020, there was a very, very short teaser trailer for that, and this is the first we've heard of it since. Of course, a lot has happened since then, so I guess we can forgive them for that. So that was the first thing that caught my eye. Now, the other one, the next one, should probably be obvious to anyone who knows me. I mean, I've got the stuff on the shelf in the background behind me. This is Doom. There has been Doom. Yes, there is Doom. Oh, so I loved Doom 2016. I thought it was amazing. I loved Eternal. I have a slightly controversial opinion that I think that 2016 was better than Eternal. But Eternal was still an amazing game, don't get me wrong. I've had this whole debate before in the Rambles. I've had comments about it. I'm sure I'm probably going to get some more now. But yes, they finally revealed the next installment in the franchise, which is called Doom: The Dark Ages, and it's Doom Guy. I refuse to call him the Doomslayer. That's a silly name. It's Doom Guy, and he's gone back to medieval times by the look of it. I think it's supposed to be a prequel to the other games, even a prequel to kind of the original games. And he's got this really cool big like furry cape thing. He's got this awesome looking armor. He's got this new shield thing that's got like it's like a circular chainsaw type thing around the outside of it that you can rev up and then like lob at people to chop them into pieces, lob at demons to chop them into pieces. There's this new gun which seems to you pump skulls into it and it shreds them and it fires fragments of skull at people, and it's the most kind of gruesome graphic looking thing you've ever seen. It's awesome. This just all looks really cool. I mean, I love the new Doom games and I think it's going to be great. And maybe obviously because of this, they're kind of touting this as a bit of a prequel kind of thing. Perhaps they'll go back to their roots a bit, a bit more kind of melee sort of hand-to-hand type combat with this shield thing, and there's this mace thing that you can, I think that's attached to one of the weapons. Yeah, exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. So that's going to be cool. Oh, yeah, and of course you've got the bit where, very, very briefly teased at the end of this trailer, where you can fly around on the back of a dragon. So it's Doom. It's going to be absolute madness. It's going to be fun. Loads of action. Looking forward to that one. I love Doom. Coming 2025. That's all you need to know. The next one, of course, is Stalker 2. Heart of Chernobyl. This has been in development for quite a long time now. If you remember the original Stalker games, absolutely love these. Really kind of groundbreaking games at the time. We've got the whole sort of cliche thing around will it run Crisis, but before that it was will it run Stalker? And the situation at the time, the answer at the time was usually no. Partly because the original games were quite poorly optimized, but of course there have been mods and things that have fixed those. Just really, really impressive, just huge open world exploration in these games. They were really, really groundbreaking at the time, like I say, and developed by a small team based in Ukraine. And yeah, we finally got a proper full-blown sequel in the form of Stalker 2, and we have a proper trailer. And to be honest, it seems to look and play the way that you remember the original games looking, which is what you want. I mean, more of the same kind of stuff. So hopefully that's going to be brilliant. You've got your anomalies, and you've got all the kind of the weird goings on, the brain control, mind control stuff. All that kind of stuff that you remember from the original game. These hub areas that are like bars and things where you can go in and kind of talk to people and get your missions, and hopefully it's kind of as big and as open as the original games were. Another one that I'm looking forward to. And finally, I think the last one that I want to cover just in this little wrap up here is a game that I was banging on about for ages earlier in this year. Played it all the way through, completed it, got all the achievements and stuff. Love this game to death. Love the original. Love the sequel, and very pleased to report that the Talos Principle 2 has. There's been a surprise announcement. It's going to be getting 3 new DLC missions, very different with very different themes. It's called Road to Elysium. It's going to expand upon kind of the original. Well, I say the original, obviously the story in Talos Principle 2. All that philosophical, religious, ponderous nonsense that I love, and of course the puzzles, the most important thing. And there's 3 different areas on here, and from some of the previews that I've seen, one of them in particular is going to be sort of really, really kind of advanced, in-depth puzzles, which is what we like to say. It's a first-person puzzle game. It's quite an unusual thing in that it's so sort of well done and so well put together and so well presented. And the puzzles are great, and the story's great, and I can't rave enough about how much I love the Talos Principle. So that's going to be wicked. Oh, it looks awesome too. I was very kindly given a very good deal on quite a fancy pants graphics card earlier this year. As you'll know, if you've been kind of following along with my channels and stuff. And this is just a gorgeous looking game, and fantastic gameplay. So yeah, loads of stuff to be excited about. New stuff. See, it's not all retro on Reese Rambles. And that brings us to the bit wherein I talk about myself. That's right, releases on my channels. Can you hear this chair creaking? I bet this has been creaking all the way through this ramble, hasn't it? I'll have to give it a listen back Might have to change strategy with the chair. Anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about. My releases on my channels, which of course I talk about every week in these rambles. And indeed, I have released a video just a few days back over on my main channel. And there's quite an interesting backstory to this and how it came about. I say interesting. Well, we'll dive into it. So this is to do with the OSSC, the open source scan converter. And I use my OSSC absolutely loads because, of course, I have to capture footage for this channel. And it's just really handy. It takes the kind of the video output from all these old machines and things, particularly PCs. That's what I like to use the OSSC with. It takes the output from those and upscales them. And then I can capture them really easily on my Elgato Cam Link, which is what I use for this and for everything else. It just makes my life a lot easier. And this was actually going to be a very sort of quick and dirty second channel video. So it's to do with a firmware mod that was released. It was initially released early last year by Marcus, who actually created the OSSC and the OSSC Pro. I've been testing the OSSC Pro on this channel and indeed over on my main channel. And this kind of came to my attention again. I'd noticed it at the time, and it was still very, very early days. It was still in beta. It still had quite a few issues. So I just thought, no, I use my OSSC all the time. I don't want to sort of risk causing any issues with it, so I'll leave it. And then promptly completely forgot that it was a thing. The whole thing was developed, I think the last update was in like October last year. Got to the point where it was kind of, had all of the features of the original OSSC, plus a load of extra stuff. You've got line 6 multiplying stuff. You've got HDR flag enabled. You've got these like shadow masks and stuff, so you can actually emulate old Sony Trinitron TVs and things, in addition to the scan lines that the OSSC could do originally. And I thought, well, I'll give it a try. So there's a very simple hardware mod. You've just got to remove one resistor. You've got to put a wire in just to bridge from one point to another on the board. And then you can install this new firmware and you get all of that stuff for free. And in my testing with it so far, it's been absolutely brilliant. Been really, really pleased with this. Well worth doing. I wish I'd done it sooner. But I think the funny thing about this is some of the feedback that I've had off the back of this is that there are a lot of people out there just like me who kind of heard about this at the time and were kind of aware of it. And thought, no, I'll wait and see where it goes, and then completely forgot about it. And they've seen my video and they're like, oh yes, I've been meaning to do that. And I've actually had quite a few people contact me and say, thanks for the reminder. I've done the mod on my OSSC, really happy with it. Well worth doing, well worth the effort. And yeah, I think it is. I think if you have an OSSC, an open source scan converter, go and watch this video and do this mod. There is some quite fine soldering involved, but it is a case of just removing one component and just soldering a wire in. And there's not really much that can go wrong. You could end up bridging a couple of the pins on the video chip, but there are people in the original kind of forum posts that managed to do that, and it doesn't look like they damaged anything. So I'm certainly not giving any guarantees with this, but this is officially endorsed and it is officially supported by the OSSC's creator, and also kind of recommended as well. So I think this is well worth doing, and I kind of want to spread the word about this, and I'm really pleased that I decided to put this on the main channel in the end. It's a little bit rough for the main channel by my standards, but I thought getting it in front of that kind of bigger audience was more important than anything else. And I'm very glad that I did it. Very short video, very to the point, just kind of shows what it's about and how to do it. And performance on that video, of course, I like to talk about performance. So, I've made £3.74 on that. So, that'll probably pay for the solder and the wire. And of course, this isn't a business endeavor. If it was, I would have given up a long time ago. But 2,000 views on that, so 875 less than usual. But hey, it's a specialist thing. It's a how-to. It's a guide. So I am working on bigger stuff. I'm not sure if anything's going to be released on the main channel in the next week or so. But if I can get this stupid thing working that I've been fiddling with, maybe that'll make an appearance on the second channel. But that's all that has been released on my YouTube channels in the past week. But wanted to just kind of put that out there. I know there are quite a few podcast listeners. I know quite a few of you will own these devices, and I can highly recommend doing that mod. So not just trying to drive traffic to my own video, but for your benefit as well. And now it's time for my video of the week. And I have had a few submissions from Steve's Tech Shed this week. But yeah, I'm not actually going to pick any of those. I'm sorry, Steve. I'm sorry, but I'm going to give you the week off this week. Because I had something that was recommended to me that was very much relevant to my interests. And I actually really enjoyed this video, and I think you'll enjoy it too if you're into retro tech. And it's not from a retro channel. So I've been getting into photography just lately, oddly enough, film photography. Not something I've talked about on any of my channels yet, or indeed any of my social media or anything, but just been messing around with some film cameras and stuff and having a nice time like the hipster that I am. And I've actually watched a few videos on some kind of photography channels. Not looking to get good at it. I don't want to be good at it. That's kind of not the point. I just kind of want that twee retro aesthetic. But it seems those two worlds have now combined thanks to the wonders of YouTube's recommendation algorithm. And it has produced this, which I think will be of interest to all of my ramblers. This is on a channel called Snappiness, which is a photography channel. He usually does stuff like interesting old film cameras and stuff, but in this one he's looking at some 90s digital cameras, and specifically the title of the video is I Tried Iconic 90s Cameras. And of course we've seen Clint from LGR do some stuff like this with some of his old webcams and digital cameras and stuff from his past, but to see it from the point of view of an actual proper professional photographer, I think is really interesting. And he does go easy on these. He does kind of see the charm in them and stuff like that. And he also talks about getting the files transferred to and from them. Sets up like an old ThinkPad to use as kind of a bridge to copy these files across. And there's a couple of cameras in here that I hadn't heard of. Like this, it starts with this weird Rico thing that has its own proprietary memory format and stuff. And it's like this really weird kind of almost like a 110 camera, if you remember those, kind of wedge shape. And he goes on to cover some more. He describes them as the iconic cameras of the 90s. There's this really, really weird looking Polaroid thing, which was aimed at professional photographers and was ridiculously expensive at the time. He covers the Game Boy camera, of course. God, I love the Game Boy camera. It's a wonderful thing. And there's the Apple Quick Take and a couple of others, I think. Oh, of course, the Sony Mavica. How could I forget the Sony Mavica, the floppy disk based Sony digital camera? And I actually have a Sony Mavica. I actually bought one on one of the Japanese auction sites a while back, and I've been meaning to do a video on it. Mine works absolutely great. It's really good. And I've been been looking forward to doing my own video on the Mavica at some point. But a nice little 12.5 minute long video this, and for a change, probably not one that's popped up on your radar. So I thought I'd recommend that as the video of the week. Really, really nicely sort of shot and edited, and really kind of nice journey that he takes us on. And it's just cool to see some of these weird old digital cameras from the 90s again. So that's my recommendation for video of the week. Linked in the usual places. I don't need to tell you again. Yada, yada, yada. And hope you enjoy. I'll be interested to see what people think about this one. And so our time together this week draws to a close, as it sadly must always do, but I have one more story for you, one thing of interest, and I want to draw this to people's attention because I really want to see this thing succeed. It's a GoFundMe trying to raise some money for some really, really important preservation work. It has met its target, but there are not really stretch goals specifically, but any kind of extra money that goes towards this is just going to improve this and make it even better. And it's a really really great member of the community that's behind it all. So let's not beat about the bush any further. Let's take a look at this. And this is a GoFundMe for K Savets, who you might know as one of the people behind the Antic Atari 8-bit podcast. That's certainly where I know him from, but really prolific tech historian and preservationist. Really kind of good egg in the community. So really want to see this succeed. And it's to do with the famous Computer Cafe, which was a radio show which was broadcast on a couple of different stations in California back in the 1980s. And the whole concept behind this show is that they interviewed kind of up-and-coming people in the kind of the tech and the computer world, because of course that's where it was all happening back at the time. The very early days of kind of the original DOS PC and Apple and the Mac and that kind of mid to late 80s kind of era. absolutely fascinating stuff, and really important to get all of that kind of documented from the people who were there and the people who were actually working on it at the time. And this show was actually thought to be lost to time for the longest time. You know, a few people kind of muttered about it in a few different corners of the internet. And one episode was actually found and has been available online for a while now. And Kay has stumbled across a collection of 54 episodes on reel-to-reel tape, and has actually begun digitizing them, and is actually paying a proper professional digitization service with all the sort of professional high-end kit to actually do this for him, which is what the money's kind of required for, and also to potentially acquire more of these tapes if and when they become available. So there's 54 episodes here, and let's just start with, Kay tells it better than I could, so let's start with the official description. It says, in 2020, I learned about the Famous Computer Cafe. I got a little obsessed with it. The Famous Computer Cafe was not a restaurant, but a radio program that was broadcast from 1983 through early 1986. The program aired on several radio stations in Southern and Central California. It included computer news, product reviews, and interviews. And it goes on to talk a little bit about the presenters and stuff. But yeah, it says this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with here. So the list of people that the show interviewed is a who's who of tech luminaries of the 1980s. Computer people, musicians, publishers, philosophers, journalists. IBM's Philip Estridge, Microsoft's Bill Gates, Atari's Jack Tramiel, MacPaint's Bill Atkinson, Infocom's Joel Perez, Star Trek's Gene Roddenberry, Herbie Hancock, the jazz musician, Trip Hawkins, obviously the founder of EA, Douglas Adams, the author, Stuart Brand, Timothy Leary, Ray Bradbury, Robert Moog, is it, the synthesizer guy, and Donny Osmond, oddly enough. But it says the list goes on, and yeah, by mid-1985, the show had run more than 300 interviews. So yeah, these kind of 54 episodes, it is just kind of scratching the surface, but the whole point of this GoFundMe is to get all of these digitized. They're going to be available completely for free. He's done the first few episodes already, and they are up on archive.org for anyone to download. Of course, I will link to this. And it says here that, I have the enthusiastic consent of the creators of the show for this project. In fact, I believe it says here somewhere that he actually interviewed them at one point on a podcast. But yeah, such a cool project, this, and I'm going to enjoy listening to these so much because it's just, there's such important history for this stuff that we all do and that we're all passionate about. So I'm going to throw a little bit of money their way, and if you want to see this thing, obviously, like I say, he's raised enough money, but if you want him to, have the resources to actually go out and track down more of these tapes and throw some more money at getting them all professionally digitized and put out there for free. The episodes that he's done so far, apparently the tapes are in really, really great condition. They've digitized really nicely. The audio quality is fantastic on these, as you would expect from these kind of big professional grade reel-to-reel tapes. So really cool to see. And yeah, not just those interviews, but there's old news articles and adverts and all sorts on there. So fascinating to listen to. And yeah, I think it's an important project for preservation of our history. So I will end on that. Thank you ever so much for joining me once more for Reese Rambles, my weekly wrap-up of all of the vintage and retro tech and gaming stuff that I do every week. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and that's all I got for you. So, bye.